But if one of the most powerful anti-aging foods for people over 60 has been sitting in your refrigerator this entire time? For decades, eggs were misunderstood. People were told to fear cholesterol, avoid egg yolks, and limit eggs to just a few per week. But here's what's really going on inside your body. After the age of 60, your metabolism changes dramatically. Muscle mass naturally declines. Hormones shift. The brain becomes more vulnerable to inflammation and cognitive decline. Your liver becomes less efficient. Insulin resistance becomes more common. And many people begin losing strength, energy, and mental sharpness without realizing the root cause is often nutritional deficiency, not simply aging. And this is where eggs become incredibly important. Because eggs are not just protein. They are a concentrated package of choline, amino acids, healthy fats, B vitamins, lutein, selenium, and nutrients that directly support muscle preservation, brain health, hormones, and metabolic stability. What the research shows is that older adults need more high-quality protein and more nutrient density, not less. And eggs happen to deliver both in one of the most bioavailable forms, available in nature. In fact, newer research is challenging decades of outdated thinking about eggs and cholesterol. Several recent studies suggest that saturated fat and processed food patterns may affect cardiovascular risk far more than moderate egg consumption itself. And even more interesting, a large 2026 study involving older adults found that regular egg consumption was associated with a significantly lower risk of Alzheimer's disease. So today, we're going to break this down clearly. We'll explore why eating 4 eggs daily after 60 may dramatically affect muscle strength, brain performance, fat burning, hormones, appetite control, and healthy aging. And more importantly, I'll show you how to use eggs strategically, the right timing, combinations, and habits that create the biggest metabolic benefits. If you're serious about protecting your energy, independence, and longevity as you age, stay with me through this entire video. Because this information could completely change the way you think about food and aging. One of the biggest hidden problems after age 60 is something called anabolic resistance. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. When you're younger, your muscles are like dry sponges. They absorb protein very easily. But as you age, those sponges become harder and less responsive. Your body suddenly requires more high-quality protein to trigger the same muscle building and repair response. And this is critical because muscle is not just about appearance. Muscle is your metabolic engine. It controls blood sugar stability, insulin sensitivity, balance, mobility, strength, and even survival during illness. After age 60, people can lose up to 3 to 8% of muscle mass per decade if they're not actively protecting it. That loss accelerates frailty, fatigue, falls, and metabolic disease. Here's what's really going on inside your body. If you don't eat enough complete protein, your body begins recycling muscle tissue for amino acids. Slowly, silently, year after year. And eggs are uniquely powerful because they contain all 9 essential amino acids in highly bioavailable form, especially leucine. Leucine is one of the key amino acids that activates muscle protein synthesis, essentially turning on the repair signal for aging muscles. 4 eggs provide roughly 24 to 28 grams of high-quality protein, which is enough to significantly stimulate muscle maintenance in many older adults. Recent meta-analyses continue to show that higher protein intake improves muscle mass and physical performance in older adults, especially when paired with movement or resistance training. And notice something important. Most older adults eat very little protein at breakfast. Instead, they start the day with toast, cereal, oatmeal, pancakes, juice, or muffins. That creates a glucose spike, followed by an insulin spike, followed by fatigue and cravings. But eggs create a completely different hormonal response. Protein increases satiety hormones and stabilizes blood sugar much more effectively. This means fewer cravings, steadier energy, and better appetite control throughout the day. Here's a practical protocol you can start using immediately. Instead of a high-carb breakfast, try 4 eggs, sautéed spinach or mushrooms, avocado or olive oil, herbal tea or black coffee. Now you've built a breakfast that supports muscle, brain function, hormones, and metabolic stability all at once. And one more thing, do not fear the yolk. The yolk contains most of the nutrients including choline, vitamin D, selenium, lutein, and healthy F. But removing the yolk is like buying a multivitamin and throwing half of it away. Now let's talk about the organ aging adults fear, losing the most, the brain. Because many people over 60 notice subtle changes that slowly begin creeping in. Names become harder to remember. Focus drops. Mental energy feels weaker. Word recall slows down. And many people assume this is simply normal aging. But here's what's really going on inside your body. The aging brain becomes more vulnerable to inflammation, insulin resistance, oxidative stress, and nutrient deficiencies. In fact, some researchers now refer to Alzheimer's disease as type 3 diabetes, because impaired glucose metabolism inside the brain appears to play such a major role. And this is where eggs become incredibly important, especially the yolks. Egg yolks are one of the richest dietary sources of choline, a nutrient most people are severely deficient in without realizing it. Choline is required to produce acetylcholine, one of the brain's most important neurotransmitters for memory, learning, and cognitive performance. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Think of acetylcholine like the Wi-Fi signal connection, connecting different parts of your brain together. Without enough choline, that signal weakens. Communication slows. Memory processing becomes less efficient, focus declines, and over time, cognitive aging accelerates. Now here's where the research becomes fascinating. A major 2026 study involving older adults found that consuming more than one egg per week was associated with up to a 47% reduction in Alzheimer's-related pathology found in the brain after death. Researchers believe much of this protective effect may come from choline. GemetAtWork.com, that is an enormous finding, because this is not just about symptom management. This is about nutritional protection for the brain itself. Egg yolks also contain lutein and zeaxanthin, antioxidants often associated with eye health, but these compounds also accumulate inside brain tissue and may help support cognitive performance and processing speed. What the research shows is that nutrient density matters tremendously after 60, and many older adults are unintentionally undernourished even while overeating calories. They consume plenty of processed carbohydrates but very little brain-supportive nutrition. This creates a dangerous combination. High insulin, chronic inflammation, low nutrient intake, mitochondrial dysfunction, and the brain suffers first. Now let's talk practical application. One of the best ways to support brain energy in aging adults is combining high-quality protein, healthy fats, stable blood sugar, anti-inflammatory nutrients. Eggs help accomplish all four simultaneously. Here's a powerful morning strategy. 4 eggs cooked in olive oil or grass-fed butter, leafy greens, salmon or sardines, a few times weekly, sunlight. Exposure within 30 minutes of waking, hydration before caffeine. That combination supports neurotransmitters, circadian rhythm, mitochondrial function, and insulin sensitivity together. And here's another important point. The brain loves metabolic stability. Frequent sugar spikes damage neurons over time through glycation and oxidative stress. But eggs digest slowly and provide steady fuel without the dramatic glucose roller coaster many breakfasts create. This is why so many people report better focus, calmer energy, and reduced brain fog after replacing processed breakfasts with protein-centered meals. And remember, protecting the brain after 60 is not about one Deficiency supplement. It's about consistently lowering inflammation while increasing nutrient density. That's the foundation. That's the root cause approach. And eggs are one of the simplest, most affordable tools to help accomplish it. Now let's talk about one of the biggest metabolic disasters happening in adults over 60, blood sugar instability. Because many people wake up tired, crave sugar all afternoon, gain belly fat easily, and feel exhausted after meals without realizing the root problem is often uncontrolled insulin spikes. Here's what's really going on inside your body. As we age, cells gradually become less sensitive to insulin. This is called insulin resistance. Imagine insulin as a key. Its job is to unlock cells so glucose can enter and be used for energy. But after decades of high sugar intake, frequent snacking, stress, poor sleep, and processed foods, the locks stop responding properly. So the body produces more insulin, and eventually the system becomes overloaded. Now, why does this matter so much after 60? Because chronically elevated insulin is deeply connected to belly fat accumulation, inflammation, fatty liver, fatigue, high triglycerides, brain fog, cardiovascular disease. Accelerated aging. Insulin is not just a blood sugar hormone. It's also a fat storage hormone. And one of the fastest ways to spike insulin in the morning is the typical breakfast most people have been taught is healthy cereal. Toast, orange juice, bagels, instant oatmeal, muffins, pancakes. Those foods digest extremely quickly and flood the bloodstream with glucose. The pancreas responds by releasing insulin aggressively. Then a few hours later, blood sugar crashes. Now you're hungry again. You crave more carbs, energy drops, and the cycle repeats all day long. But eggs create a completely different metabolic environment because protein and fat digest slowly. They provide satiety without massive glucose spikes. Several studies have shown that higher protein breakfasts improve blood sugar control and reduce hunger later in the day compared to carbohydrate-heavy breakfasts. pmc.ncbi.nlm.nih.gov. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Imagine your bloodstream is a fireplace. Processed carbohydrates are like throwing gasoline onto the fire. Huge flames, fast heat, then everything crashes. Eggs are like placing slow-burning hardwood logs into that fireplace. Steady fuel, stable energy. longer-lasting metabolic control. And this becomes extremely important for fat loss after 60, because many people think aging itself causes stubborn weight gain, but often the deeper issue is persistent insulin elevation preventing fat burning. When insulin stays high, the body struggles to access stored fat. It's like trying to withdraw money from a locked bank account. Your fat is stored energy, but insulin keeps the vault closed. This is why replacing high-carb breakfasts with eggs can dramatically reduce cravings and improve appetite control throughout the day. Now here's a practical strategy I often recommend. Try this simple metabolic reset breakfast for 2 weeks. 4 eggs, sautéed vegetables, avocado water, before coffee, no juice, no cereal, no toast, no sugar-loaded healthy granola. Then pay attention to hunger levels, mental clarity, waistline, afternoon cravings, energy stability. Many people are shocked by how quickly their appetite changes. Because once insulin becomes more stable, the body finally regains access to stored fuel. And here's something important. Eggs are not magic by themselves. They work best when they replace processed carbohydrates. That's the real metabolic shift. You're not simply adding eggs. You're removing the blood sugar chaos that has been driving inflammation and fat storage for years. Now we need to address one of the biggest myths in nutrition history, the fear of eggs and cholesterol. Because for decades, people were told, eggs raise cholesterol. Egg yolks are dangerous. Limit eggs to protect your heart. And millions of people became afraid of one of the most nutrient-dense foods available. But here's what's really going on inside your body. Your liver produces most of your cholesterol. In fact, cholesterol is so essential for survival that your body manufactures it continuously. Why? Because cholesterol is required for hormone production, brain structure, vitamin D synthesis, cell membrane integrity, nerve function. Without cholesterol, you cannot build healthy cells or hormones. Now, this doesn't mean cholesterol never matters. It means the story is far more complex than people were taught. What the research now shows is that for most people, dietary cholesterol from eggs has a relatively modest effect on blood cholesterol. Cholesterol levels compared to ultra-processed foods, excess sugar, trans fats, smoking, chronic inflammation, and insulin resistance. And this distinction matters enormously, because inflammation is what damages arteries, not simply cholesterol itself. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Think of cholesterol like a firefighter. When there's damage inside blood vessels, cholesterol is often sent to the area to help repair it. But for years, people blamed the firefighter instead of asking, what caused the fire? The real fires are often chronic high insulin, oxidative stress, smoking, processed seed oils, excess sugar, obesity, inflammation. Now, here's another critical point many people never hear. As people age, low cholesterol can actually become dangerous in some situations. Very low cholesterol levels in older adults have been associated in some studies with frailty, hormone decline, and increased mortality risk. Because cholesterol is not the enemy. Metabolic dysfunction is the enemy. A large body of modern research now suggests that moderate egg consumption is generally safe for most healthy individuals and may even support cardiometabolic health when included with in an overall nutrient-dense diet. Health.harvard.edu, and eggs also improve HDL, the so-called good cholesterol in many people. HDL acts almost like a cleanup crew, helping transport excess cholesterol away from tissues and back to the liver. But here's where nuance matters. If someone already has severe insulin resistance, uncontrolled diabetes, or significant cardiovascular disease, context becomes important. Because the issue is rarely just the eggs. It's often the combination of eggs with processed meats, refined carbohydrates, smoking, lack of exercise, and metabolic inflammation. In other words, eggs with vegetables and olive oil create a completely different physiological environment than eggs with fries, soda, and processed fast food. The body responds to dietary patterns, not isolated ingredients. Now let's talk practical application. If you're over 60 and eating eggs daily, focus on quality and preparation. Choose minimally processed foods. Overall, pair eggs with fiber and healthy fats. Avoid sugar-heavy breakfasts. Prioritize walking and resistance training. Improve sleep quality. Reduce chronic stress, because all of these influence cardiovascular risk. Or more than fearfully avoiding egg yolks. And here's something powerful to remember. The human brain itself is nearly 60% fat by dry weight. Hormones are built from cholesterol. Cell membranes depend on healthy fats. Your body is not designed to run on low-fat processed snack foods. It's designed to thrive on real nutrition. And eggs remain one of the most efficient, affordable, and biologically complete foods to help support that process after 60. Now let's move into something most people never connect to eggs: liver function and fat burning. Because after age 60, one of the most common hidden problems is a sluggish, fatty, overburdened liver. And many people have no idea it's happening. They think, my metabolism just slowed down. I guess belly fat is part of aging. I don't have energy anymore. But here's what's really going on inside your body. The liver is your metabolic control center. It regulates blood sugar, processes hormones, burns fat, detoxifies chemicals, produces bile, stores nutrients, and helps manage inflammation. When the liver becomes overloaded, especially from years of excess sugar, processed food, alcohol, insulin resistance, and CHR, chronic inflammation fat begins accumulating inside liver cells. This is called fatty liver. And today, metabolic dysfunction-associated fatty liver disease is becoming incredibly common in older adults. Now here's why this matters. A fatty liver struggles to regulate insulin properly. It struggles to burn fat efficiently. And it begins sending distress signals throughout the body. Fatigue, stubborn abdominal fat, elevated triglycerides, inflammation, poor energy hormone imbalance, brain fog. This is why so many people feel metabolically stuck. Their fat-burning engine is impaired. Now here's where eggs become surprisingly powerful. Egg yolks are rich in choline, and choline plays a critical role in helping the liver transport fat out of liver cells. Without enough choline, fat can literally accumulate inside the liver more easily. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Think of the liver like a shipping warehouse. Choline helps package and export fat efficiently. Without enough workers in the warehouse, boxes pile up everywhere. Traffic slows down. Systems become overwhelmed. That's essentially what happens metabolically in a fatty liver. And many people are not getting enough choline consistently. Eggs are one of the richest natural sources available. Research continues to show that choline deficiency is strongly connected to fatty liver development and impaired lipid metabolism. odds.od.nih.gov, but eggs help fat burning in another important way too. They improve satiety. This matters tremendously after 60 because appetite regulation changes with aging. Many people snack constantly without realizing insulin remains elevated nearly all day long. And remember, high insulin blocks fat burning. But protein-rich meals like eggs increase fullness hormones, including peptide YY, and help reduce overeating later. That means fewer cravings, better calorie control naturally, and improved metabolic flexibility. Now let's talk about a simple fat-burning protocol many adults over 60 benefit from. Start the morning with 4 eggs, non-starchy vegetables, healthy fats like avocado or olive oil, hydration first thing in the morning. Then avoid constant grazing throughout the day. Allow insulin time to fall between meals, because fat burning does not happen effectively when insulin is elevated every few hours. This is why combining eggs with time, restricted eating, can become extremely powerful for metabolic repair. For example, breakfast at 9 a.m., dinner by 6 p.m., no nighttime snacking that gives the body a longer window to lower insulin and access stored fat. And here's another key point. After 60, hormone production also becomes more fragile. Testosterone declines, estrogen shifts, cortisol dysregulation becomes more common, and cholesterol and healthy fats are raw materials for hormone production. Extremely low-fat diets can sometimes worsen hormonal resilience and energy in older adults. Eggs help provide the building blocks the body actually needs, not processed diet foods. Real nourishment. Now let's bring everything together and answer the most important question. What is the best way to actually eat eggs after 60 for maximum anti-aging and metabolic benefit? Because the goal is not simply eating more eggs. The goal is creating a metabolic environment where the body can heal, repair, and function efficiently. And small details matter. Timing matters. Food combinations matter. Cooking methods matter. Lifestyle context matters. Here's what's really going on inside your body. After 60, recovery BACO. Less slower. Muscle protein synthesis becomes less responsive. Blood sugar becomes more sensitive to poor food choices. Inflammation accumulates more easily. And nutrient absorption can become less efficient. So the body benefits most from foods that deliver maximum nutrition with minimal metabolic stress. That is exactly why eggs are so effective. They provide complete protein, healthy fats, choline, B vitamins, selenium, lutein, zeaxanthin, fat-soluble nutrients, all in a relatively low-calorie package. But here's the key. How you pair eggs determines whether they support healing or contribute to metabolic dysfunction. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Think of eggs like premium fuel. If you pour premium fuel into a damaged engine filled with sugar sludge and inflammation, performance still suffers. But when the entire system improves, the engine starts running smoothly again. That's why context matters. One of the best strategies for adults over 60 is building protein-centered meals instead of carbohydrate-centered meals. For example, compare these two breakfasts. Breakfast number 1. Cereal orange juice toast with jam. This creates rapid glucose spikes inside. Insulin surges, hunger crashes, inflammation cravings. Now compare that with 4 eggs, spinach, mushrooms, avocado, olive oil. Now you create Stable blood sugar, improved satiety, muscle support, brain nutrients, healthier insulin response, completely different physiology. Now let's talk cooking methods. The healthiest preparation methods are generally boiled, poached, lightly scrambled, cooked in olive oil, avocado oil, or grass-fed butter. Avoid pairing eggs with heavily processed oils and ultra-processed fast foods whenever possible. Because again, dietary patterns matter more than isolated foods. Now another question people ask is, should I eat all 4 eggs at once? For many adults over 60, yes, especially at breakfast. Why? Because breakfast is where protein deficiency often begins. Starting the day with sufficient protein improves satiety, energy stability, and muscle preservation throughout the entire day. Research also suggests that distributing protein effectively across meals may help support muscle maintenance in older adults. Academic.oup.com. Now let's discuss one important exception. Not every person responds identically. Some individuals, called hyperresponders male, I experience larger cholesterol increases from dietary cholesterol. That's why personalized medicine matters. Always monitor triglycerides, HDL, fasting insulin, waist circumference, inflammatory markers, overall metabolic health. Because numbers must be interpreted in context. And here's something many people overlook. Lifestyle amplifies everything. Eggs work best when combined with walking after meals, resistance training, proper sleep, stress reduction, hydration, sunlight exposure, reduced processed food intake. Health is never one single food. It's the entire metabolic environment. But eggs can absolutely become one of the most powerful foundational foods inside that environment. Especially after 60, when the body becomes less forgiving of nutrient deficiencies and blood sugar chaos. And when you consistently provide the body with stable fuel, quality protein, healthy fats, and nutrient density, the body often responds remarkably well even later in life. So what have we learned today? We learned that after age 60, the body changes dramatically. Muscle becomes harder to maintain. The brain becomes more vulnerable to inflammation. Insulin resistance becomes more common. Hormones shift. Fatigue increases. And many people begin losing metabolic flexibility without realizing why. But we also learned something incredibly encouraging. The body still responds powerfully to the right nutritional signals. And eggs happen to deliver many of those signals in one simple, affordable food. Complete protein for muscle preservation. Choline for brain and liver support. Healthy fats for hormones. Nutrients that stabilize blood sugar and reduce cravings. And metabolic support that becomes increasingly valuable as we age. Most importantly, we uncovered the real issue. It's not just about eggs. It's about replacing processed, inflammatory foods with nutrient-dense foods that help the body repair itself instead of constantly struggling to survive. That is the root cause approach. Not masking symptoms, not chasing quick fixes, but creating an internal environment where better energy, clearer thinking, healthier weight, and stronger aging become possible. So here's my challenge to you. For the next 2 weeks, try replacing a processed breakfast with a protein-centered breakfast built around eggs and whole foods. Track your hunger, your energy, your focus, your cravings, your waistline, your sleep, because your body gives feedback very quickly when metabolism begins improving. And remember, small, consistent changes create massive long-term outcomes. If this video added value to your health journey, like the video and subscribe to the channel. Join a community of people committed to improving energy, metabolism, and longevity naturally, one science-backed step at a time.